This is coming right around the corner. And again, this is going to open up so much possibilities here because basically Flux will become a direct competitor now to the likes of Render. Wow, what a crazy bloody title. One altcoin to make me millions in this bull run. Well, as crazy as it might sound, I'm willing to take that bet for the altcoin I'm going to introduce to you today. This altcoin is a perfect blend between DePIN and AI, plus a whole host of other really powerful narratives that will perform extremely good in the current cycle. Now, my job here today isn't to make you want to FOMO in. Matter of fact, I would suggest you do your own research, but it's to present the facts that make me so bullish on a coin that is currently a sleeping giant in the bull run. Yes, it's made a few multiples, but as far as it can go, we've seen the likes of Render and Fetch. These coins 4-5x at such a large market cap already. You're going to be surprised on the top side potential this coin still has to go. And so guys, my purpose in this video is again to teach you something new, is to give you a coin that you can do some more research on and hopefully leave you wide-eyed. And if you do have that moment that, aha, my God, I got to do more research, drop me a like, it really helps me out. But I want you, importantly, to subscribe so you can achieve your crypto goals. First things first, number one, I do own this token. I have a fair chunk of the token, I guess, I've recently purchased. I've actually recently purchased not too far down from the current price, and that should tell you right now that I do expect this coin to do many more multiples from here, but it is not a sponsored video, so I do want to get that off and cleared straight away for anyone currently speculating. Now, this is a chart that represents the top 3 narratives of the bull run, or at least definitely the top 2. Gaming likely isn't added on this list so far, but AI and DePIN are in these 2 top lines. Over here, you can see AI currently performing extremely well versus even DePIN in second place. Oracles are down here, okay? So again, this project blends both of these very powerful narratives together, which is why I've ranked them respectively number 1 and number 2, AI and DePIN, for this cycle's growth overall. Now, the project in question today is Flux. Now, whether you've heard of Flux before or this is the first time you're hearing about it, I'm likely going to give you some more things you haven't heard of about this project in this video. And I just want to stress, guys, this is really a sleeping giant of the bull run. It blends so many different powerful areas that it didn't just, hey, we're doing this now because this seems to be the current trend of the 2025 cycle, which is what a lot of these projects are doing. If you pay close attention, they're rebranding to suit these big narratives, but these guys have been working on this for years, like many, many years, more than the last cycle, okay? So as you'll see momentarily, there is a lot of potential here because the partnerships that they've made and the technology itself is actually being used to a degree I think no other real AI and DePIN project is so far. It's insane. So what is Flux? Well, you might have already guessed, it's basically a Web3 cloud. You can kind of think of its competitors as the likes of Amazon Web Service, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, and so on, right? As you can see, these guys have the monopoly in the market. 66% of anyone that does anything online, website hosting, any of that stuff goes through these 3, at least the majority speaking, okay, which is very bad. And as the world will progress, one thing I predicted in my first breakdown of Flux Network like 8 or 9, 12 months ago, as the world progresses, we will be moving more into a distributed cloud providers. We will have to move that way because these guys can very simply, just like we've seen before with some of these really dystopian payment providers just shutting down people's whole entire business models because they don't agree with what their business is or where they're going in terms of, the business growth itself. So this is centralized, and obviously, as we know, being in crypto, centralized is a no-go. It's no bueno, alrighty? So I want to touch now on some of these narratives that I spoke about, because whether you're familiar with my channel or not, a big proponent of what you need to be familiar with in terms of a project's growth in this cycle is 2 things. How many narratives is it in? And what is the meme? Okay, what makes it unique? This is why meme coins pump when there's no intrinsic value to these projects. This is the most important thing. If you find someone telling you it's important to have utility in a project for this cycle, that's a lie. They probably don't know that, but it's not true, okay? And so the reason why is because you think about the growth we're having in this cycle. It's not Hedera, for example, pushing through 2,000 TPS. That's real utility. But why is Hedera not at the number 1 spot, right? It's pretty much being used at this point equal to, if not a little bit less than Ethereum, more than Solana, that's for sure. But why isn't it up there in terms of the top 5? It's because degens, dumb money, needs to be hooked in and want to buy, which is why it has to be diverse in terms of these. And also, it has to be unique. It has to be eye-opening for the degen. And if we kind of zoom into what Flux is, it hits so many narratives. It's probably one of the very, very top projects that hit the most narratives, and not just half-ass. It definitely hits them. Interoperability hits this. We'll show you in a second here. Basically, the way Flux works is that you can earn rewards on other networks, and also you host nodes that support other networks. AI, DePIN, of course, modularity, Web3 layer 1. It's a big data project, of course. Cloud infrastructure is at its core. Storage, and of course, it's all proof of work. So you guys that like Cadena, Casper, with a K, you're going to love this project too. So again, Flux basically makes a decentralized Web3 cloud. They do a lot. You can host anything on Flux. Matter of fact, we'll see a partnership here in a second with WordPress. You can host your entire website on them. We're not just talking about half-ass. You can host an entire website on Flux. As to compare the cost of using a distributed network, you would think, hey, this is new tech. It's probably going to cost more. Yes, you get the benefit of being decentralized, but it's going to come at a premium. Well, no, it's actually cheaper. You can see Flux way down here. I'm going to put my big head back in a frame. You can see Amazon Web Service, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, those three big monopolized companies, they are well and truly in excess of Flux. I'm going to show you a comparison in a moment by running a node on a particular blockchain versus these three. Okay, it's just insane. And if we have a look at Coinbase, for example, Coinbase outages in the last 24 hours has spiked. And it's just crazy to believe that if you use Flux, Flux has had zero downtime. So zero downtime at all. It can handle the traffic. So we're not talking about a wishful thinking, pipeline-based project. It's really able to handle this sort of workload right now. And I think it's a matter of time before we have a company like Coinbase or Binance, a project that is Web 2 focused, like an exchange, has its paws in Web 3 that would want to leverage something like Flux. So Flux is at $1.29, and I said moments ago I bought a whole bunch of these tokens. I actually bought a whole bunch at just under $1. So I am basically 30% up on my bags right now. So for anyone out there thinking to themselves, oh, I've missed a boat on this, no. The upside is still here. And, you might be asking yourself, well, is it being used? Well, yes. The revenue in the last 30 days for Flux, as you can see, ranks number 3. It is, I say, just behind Filecoin by about, 150 odd thousand, but it really is just behind Filecoin. But it's actually destroying the likes of Render, Akash, StoreJ, Helium, right? Not really Helium, but definitely Render and Akash, right? Some of these DePIN AI projects that we hold to a very high standard, it's currently beating them. So it is being used without a shadow of a doubt. There's no question in that. And considering the market cap is substantially lower, 402 million versus 4.2 billion and 1.37 billion. I mean, just work out the math yourself. And so we'll go over the partners momentarily, but it's a perfect blend of what I try to teach on the channel, which is finding projects that are Web 2 and Web 3 focused. If you can hit both of these nails on the head, like Flux does down here, it's a recipe for success. What Web 3 ultimately brings in for projects is fast, huge growth, which is what I base my research model on. After 10,000 hours of my research in crypto, 16 hours a day sitting in this chair, finding what makes a project pump in crypto, it's Pumpamentals. I didn't want to believe it. I came to that conclusion. Now, actual utility comes in the sense of Web 2, but like again with HBAR has an insane amount of actual utility, 2,000 TPS consistently, and yet it's not up the top because it needs to focus on this, which is why the likes of Hedera, for example, is now moving towards focusing on growing its Web 3 presence. They know this is what brings in the quick, fast money for the cycle. More money, more eyes, more adoption, you're going to pick up more end utility over here. And that is what ultimately Flux is looking to do as well. These guys are a really great blend. They're one of the very few projects that hit both of these areas. So Web3, Flux is doing things like, again, decentralizing networks, okay? So fundamentally, what you can think of Flux is doing is if we have a network like Ethereum over here, these little people are all the nodes. Let's pretend there's 10 nodes. And that's great. That's what most people look at as the infrastructure for projects. Where are the nodes distributed? Who's hosting the nodes? Oh, okay, this in 100 countries. There's 10,000 nodes. That's a decentralized network. Well, wrong. Where are the nodes being hosted? Well, currently 35% of all the nodes on Ethereum are being hosted on Amazon Web Service. The US government or whatever said, hey, close down all your ETH nodes, there's 35% of the network gone like that. But if they hosted themselves on Flux, which Flux could most definitely handle even cheaper than Amazon Web Service, it's actually very decentralized. It's providing a cloud built from people's computers around the world. It's the Bitcoin of cloud infrastructure. Also, it's Web 2 focused as well, of course, in the very nature of it's a pretty much distributed computer, digital computer, which is what a cloud basically is. And so, of course, it's no censorship, no single point of failure, and no sanctions. It cannot be manipulated. And the fact that it fundamentally runs on a proof of work network should really be an indication for you that, again, it is as fair as possible. There's a slow release of all the tokens, right? The tokens, there's only, by the way, 440 million that will ever exist, and there's currently about 78% in circulation. This all works at a 2-year halving. This obviously promotes decentralization at the very base, which enables this very distributed cloud to occur. So let's talk partners. Now, they are partnered with NVIDIA, and interestingly enough, they've been partnered with NVIDIA for far longer than some of these other projects, right? They are in NVIDIA's Inception program, which means they leverage a few very important things, right? Experts, networking events, and co-marketing support. Being partnered with NVIDIA via the Inception program, first of all, allows a project like Flux to be at the cutting edge of GPUs and NVIDIA's chips and all their developers, basically receiving all of the things required to run a distributed product. And not just that, but as we'll see in a second here, large language models, AIs, require these massive, these really fast chips, these H100 and soon to be H200 chips, which of course NVIDIA created. So this actually goes a lot further than what you might think, which is why I have mentioned it. These guys are actually going to be at the NVIDIA GTC conference happening in about less than a week right now. So this will be really good to see, because obviously the contacts that will be made from this could hopefully lead to something very, very soon. And the fact that they've been partnered in this program for so long, you would like to believe that there is something being collaborated on the back end. You know, these things don't happen overnight. So the fact that they aren't a new Inception program member might mean that we see something happening soon. It's part of my Pumpamentals research, right? We can base old partnerships on what might happen over the course of the bull run, because we know projects like to release big news over the bull run. Again, it's a big free marketing campaign, basically. Not only that, but of course, they're partnered with the guys over at Lumen. Lumen is like a multi-billion-dollar revenue-generating company, right? They've got like 20 or 30,000 global employees, and they have worked with Flux to create the Titan nodes. So I'll discuss in a moment the different types of nodes that basically support the cloud. These guys helped create the enterprise-focused and enterprise-run Titan node to enable much larger services to be run on the network rather than small node. And we have OVH Cloud, and these guys are also the leaders over in Europe and Canada with a cloud service provider, okay? They're working with Flux, and they have been working with Flux for a while to also enable, you know, Flux to leverage these huge data centers, basically, which will, of course, make it a lot more usable for enterprise clients. So Flux is really gearing up to bring on the enterprise customer, and I think that's where they grow heavily next. And one such outcome of this enterprise focus is the fact that they've partnered with WordPress to enable people to host entire front-end, back-end, or entire websites on Flux, and it's extremely cheap to do so as well. But not only that, you can also pay in fiat and crypto, and the way that Flux has designed this is that it's actually cheaper to pay in Flux tokens, which means it's going to bring more utility for the Flux token itself. Dan also recently announced, like a few days ago, that they're looking to incorporate Stripe and PayPal into this marketplace very soon as well. So they're opening the ability for more people to use this. Obviously, the more seamless this integration can become between, you know, regular Web 2 businesses and the Web 3 decentralized cloud, Flux, the better, the more adoption it'll, of course, come with. Now, I told you moments ago that I was going to introduce you to just show you how cheap Flux really is. Well, Near Protocols, you know, cost to run one of their full nodes, right? And basically, Amazon Web Service, GCP, haven't heard of these guys before, and, you know, Microsoft Azure, they're all like over $200 each per month. I mean, Amazon Web Service is over $400 a month to run these things, which is just insane. And you compare that to Flux, zero downtime, mind you, zero downtime, no censorship, none of that sort of crap that comes with those companies and products, right? You can run that for the low price of $30.40 with the Flux, or $44 USD if you just pay with, you know, fiat. It's insane. Matter of fact, if you go to 12 months and recalibrate the cost, it's actually cheaper than Amazon Web Service for an entire year. It's insane. If you have a look at actually how it's integrated with WordPress and you have a look at some of the features involved and how cheap it really is, it's very, very simple, right? If I just scroll down here, basic plan is $6, standard plan is $10, Pro is $22, and Enterprise is $45 a month. Now, the WordPress integration has been in beta for the last, I believe, few years now, but it is finally releasing its full version. That's going to bring a whole heap of demand in for Flux, especially if people start buying the Flux token, which is just that's the pinnacle of that Web2 utility, really. Money will flow through this. Hopefully, as long as they market themselves correctly, it should hopefully create that price shock I was telling you about before, because again, it is a proof of work, fairly mined project. They've also partnered up with NiceHash mining very recently as well. You can see all these updates starting to frequently come out here, which can only give you an indication as to what is coming next. And so what this is going to enable is, a very easy deployment of people's idle GPUs to start, supporting Flux and earning some passive rewards, again, in a very easy way. But this ultimately underpins one very important thing, the proof of useful work area. They haven't actually really released this just yet. And as we can see here by this announcement from Flux Edge, which is basically going to enable people to rent these GPUs out for the likes of AI and rendering, there's only 17 days left until the alpha release. So this is coming right around the corner. And again, this is going to open up so much possibilities here, because basically Flux will become a direct competitor now to the likes of Render. This is the same process that Render basically does to support their entire infrastructure. People will be able to very quickly here in the next few days or a couple of weeks plug into Flux and enable rendering and AI use, which is again going to be supported by the partnership with NiceHash. Now, again, if people can simply just plug right into NiceHash and have their GPUs idling into Flux very easily, again, with simply just a couple of clicks, that is going to enable a lot more adoption. So you can see these things beginning to compound and start at the right time. That's why I've bet so far on Flux, is because you can only imagine once the mass market starts picking up on these things. Put it this way, they've got 3,700 machines already hooked up without the NiceHash partnership really being activated, with 5,800 GPUs so far being leveraged. They're going to be building out their marketplace as well, which is what we can see right here. And it's insane what you can do. Again, you can host entire nodes. You can host a Celestia node, a couple clicks. You press this, you go through the process, and you can literally just spin up a Celestia node, no problem. Also, Potenza node, you can host a whole Potenza node on here. Front end as well, you can run things like Yearn Finance front end, Pangolin, Balancer, Osmosis. This is just in beta. This really hasn't leveraged the full capabilities just yet. We'll see what's going to happen in 2 weeks just here. So, it's mind-boggling, and you can check out the tokenomics as well, the light paper. This will tell you basically what they're planning to roughly do to price in Flux in this process. Again, I kind of refer back to the burn mint equilibrium over here for Render. It would be a really cool idea for Flux to incorporate a sort of burn mechanism or a similar mechanism like this, but again, it might not be economically viable. I'm not too sure. So the way Flux actually differs from the likes of Render, for example, is that Render, again, only focuses on that process. So the user creating the job, sending the job back. But again, what Flux does is enable an entire ecosystem to be created. They're creating an entire decentralized, cloud, which is the whole next level, in my opinion. Again, I love Render, but it's just a whole different sort of product at this point. They do offer a few other things as well. They're XDAO, so it's decentralized. They have their whole entire Flux Labs section, so they create partnerships and incubate smaller projects, for example. And Zalcore is an entire wallet that is built out from Flux, which has a whole host of really great options. And one of those such options is the fact that you can receive rewards, or you do receive rewards on other networks. For every one Flux that you receive when you use Flux and mine the token, you receive an equally distributed part in other networks as well. They call them their parallel assets. So they're currently partnered with 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 9, 10, 11 other networks right now, or at least Bitcoin is coming soon, which means that every one Flux you mine, you basically double your reward instantly. You get a wrapped version of Flux on these networks, which is designed to incentivize you to use their networks as well. And I want to kind of finalize up over here and talk to you a little bit about what Flux actually looks like in terms of their cloud. So again, we can kind of mention that their proof of useful work sort of things, they run actual miners over here. These miners are again going to ideally be bootstrapped even more by the NiceHash partnership, and they get about 50% of every single block reward. But what about who's actually supporting the Flux cloud itself? Well, again, it's Cumulus, Nimbus, Stratus, and now the new Titan nodes as well. And these are all created over here by just buying a simple little, Flux node, and then you can go ahead and stake a bunch of tokens, and this all works to support, again, that decentralized cloud. And these are some of the stats they're currently working with. So they have 104,000 cores, 272 terabytes of RAM, 7 petabytes of SSD, and 1,600 terabytes of HDD. So it's very, very strong, right? There's a lot of computation already in this. And the reason why is because they have so many nodes. They have 13,000 nodes already with 116 million Flux locked up in supply, which is like somewhere around 1/3 of the entire supply is currently locked up in just these nodes itself. I'm going to finalize there. And I hope you have enjoyed this breakdown of Flux and this introduction to a very powerful AI and DePIN coin that, again, I am very much so speculating on as one of my top multiple gainers of the bull run. So look, if you made it this far, let me know by dropping a like down below, and I'll talk to you all very soon. Take care.